reminder to flip that off or into silent or airplane or whatever.
That's the 6 o'clock break.
Whatever, that's the 6 o'clock. Okay, there you go. Yeah. That's the 6 o'clock alarm will never ring. Wait, isn't that part of a song?
Cheer up, sleepy Jean.
There you go. There you go. Wake up, sleepy Jean. All right, thank you. So welcome. Glad you're all here. I'm Bruce Hunter. I'm the interim director of college counseling. I began here January 1, and I'm here through the end of May with the responsibility of bridging the tenures of my predecessors who were here through 1 through June and then 1 through the fall. And so I'm here to work with parents and students of seniors, mainly the students themselves, and then to kind of kickstart the process with juniors. When I have had the opportunity to sort of say, well, now what are we doing for younger students and parents? This was an opportunity in the calendar to sort of piece this in, and the gentleman who I'm about to introduce is someone who I've known for many, many years, and I'm just thrilled to introduce Mr. Terry Giffen. Terry and I are both graduates of Allegheny College in Meadville, Pennsylvania. And I think, we've talked about this, but I think Terry graduated the spring before I arrived in the fall. Is that right?
You're class of 76?
77.
Oh, that's correct then.
Okay. So Terry at Allegheny was an incredibly successful and highly competitive heavyweight wrestler. And
I've been heavyweight since 7th grade. I almost failed category because they didn't fit in the sandbox.
And I never had the opportunity to see Terry wrestle. But when I went to wrestling matches at Allegheny as a freshman, just as a fan, there were locals who were big wrestling fans who, while everything was going on, they were talking to each other, and you could eavesdrop, and they would say to each other or to anybody else, within sort of hearing distance, well, this team is okay, but you should have been here last year to see that Giffen kid wrestle at heavyweight. So his reputation, at least long before we've met obviously dozens of times since. We're in the same field. We've both worked in independent schools and in college admissions and everything else. But it's a great pleasure. Terry retired here to South Carolina, coastal South Carolina, but kind of up Delta Island way near Beaufort a number of years ago, and we've stayed in touch over time, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Terry Giffen.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to talk about a profession that has meant the world to me. I grew up a public school kid on Long Island, a big public high school, where I had a guidance counselor. I saw that guidance counselor maybe a couple times to help me plan my schedule. I did go to Allegheny, and I wanted to coach and teach, which I did. I started in high school. That was a challenge, but especially junior high school girls, very, very difficult at that point. But then I thought I wanted to get into athletic administration, and I wanted to do that. And suddenly I found myself being offered a job to be a head wrestling coach, assistant football coach, track coach, and English teacher, which is a pretty odd combination, football and English and wrestling kind of stuff. So I did that at a prep school. And one year the headmaster said, I'd like you to become our college counselor. And I said, what's a college counselor? I didn't know. But that gentleman changed my life, changed the direction of my life. And after doing that for a few years, I was recruited to go back to Allegheny, and I was the Associate Dean of Admissions at Allegheny for a number of years, working for the man who actually admitted me to college years ago. From there, I was recruited to go to Iowa. Iowa College, 3 letters. Any New York Times fans? Iowa College, 3 letters? Coe College, exactly. So I was Dean of Admissions at Coe College for a number of years. And then I really just missed the boarding school world. I missed sort of the contact with students. So I wound up going back into the secondary school, boarding school world, and I spent 11 years at Children's Hall in Connecticut, where my kids graduated from there. And after 11 years of doing the same thing, I thought I wanted something different, and I went to England. I became the head of American High School outside London. I was on the headmaster track. I thought I should be running a division before the in school. And I quickly found I didn't like the work because, again, it was taking me away from kids. Just like the dean's job on the college level was taking me away from kids. So I went back to college counseling and wound up in Nashville, Tennessee. Culture shock, London to Nashville. Wow. But we loved it. We loved it. A great, great place. My wife worked at Vanderbilt. I worked for a really high-end all-boys day school, Montgomeryville Academy, and then, which is day school. And then I loved the boarding school. I went back to boarding school after I went back and finished my career at the Taft School in Watertown, Connecticut. 2014, I chose to retire early, wanted to have a little more control of my own schedule, came to Dapper Island, and quickly found that you could only play so much golf, and then when you lived in the boarding school world for so long, when your days are 24/7, I just wasn't that busy, so I started my own consulting business, and since 2014, I've been doing independent education consulting, working with students and families and schools in the US and abroad. Much of my time was spent initially in Korea, where I helped establish a new program at an American school affiliated with Korea, Chavik International School in Sangdo. And then I was working in Hong Kong, and Vietnam, and different places, but I also maintained sort of a group of my own independent educational consulting clients, which I continue to do today. The love of my life when I do some of this stuff is I do audits of college counseling operations, and then I do executive searches. I help bring college counselors to campuses. But I'll go in and take a look at how a school supports the college counseling process, because it's not just the college counselor alone who does this. You know, it's even though it takes a village, but everything supports this. So the moment you step on campus, your college counseling process really begins in some ways when you come to campus. So there's that. And just working and helping students and families and mentoring young admissions counselors over the years has just been a real joy. So there's a brief background. Now I'm going to get to some prepared remarks, not long, and I really want to answer as many questions as you have about the process moving forward. First, the temperature of the room. How many people have had children go to college before? Veterans. Not many, but when I ask that question, it reminds me of being a first parent of the first child and the second child. When the first child drops their bottle, you pick it up, you sterilize it again, and take care of the second child. There you go. So, if you do have multiple kids, I think it's important to try to give each child their own experience through the college process as well. I want to begin by thanking Bruce for inviting me. I thought he was class of '76, and I had this great line that we've known each other for 50 years. No, apparently not, only 49. I suspect that some of you are wondering why we're even here. Parents of ninth graders are wondering, my gosh, we just started ninth grade, and now we're talking college? Give me a break. I'm sure there's some of that. I also suspect that there are others who are anxious to learn about the things you and your children should be doing right now and in the months ahead, to assure that they're well positioned for the college search and application process. For the most part, I'm not here to talk about the college process in great detail. But I am here because I want to talk about preparing for the college process. To say that the world of college admissions has dramatically changed in the recent years would be to understate the obvious. Fueled by the test optional movement, which began numbers of years ago, many years ago actually, but it's fueled by the COVID, by the pandemic, this whole move to test optional. That test optional movement was a byproduct of COVID. And it's also fueled, this process has all been fueled by countless books, rankings, and articles on the subject. This has caused a hysteria in our culture. That's just led to exponential increases in applications to colleges and universities, and to single-digit acceptance rates at some of the most popular and prestigious schools. That's the bad news. Now here's the good news. Schools with single-digit acceptance rates account for only about 2% of all the colleges and universities in America, while more than half of the schools in America accept about 70% of their applicants. After spending 44 years at the college admissions officer and college counselor, the best piece of advice that I can offer you tonight is simply to say, relax. It will be okay. It will. While there may be bumps and disappointments along the way, your children are well positioned for success in the process. That positioning began when you chose to enroll your students in this excellent independent school. This is a school, as you may know, whose mission statement says is to prepare and competent and motivated students to succeed in college and beyond within a curriculum that incorporates a solid academic foundation with critical thinking skills while leveraging students' creativity and preparing them to thrive in an ever-changing world. Isn't that the case? The ever-changing world. Which, in my opinion, argues for the liberal arts because it's ever-changing. It's not just STEM. We need people who can write, who can think, who can problem solve, who can work independently, who can work collaboratively. Okay, so with this foundation that you're establishing here, success in college will be determined far more by who your child has become in their time here and by what he or she chooses to do in college, more so than by the name of the undergraduate college that they attend. Okay, so how do we as parents help our students to succeed in school and to prepare for the college process? First, we must always let our children know that we value scholarship, hard work, character, resilience, empathy, service, and gratitude. Next, we must encourage them to take ownership of their education by controlling the things that they can control. Going to class on time, going to class prepared, turning in assignments on time, being active learners by contributing to discussions, by asking questions, and by seeking help when they're struggling. To assure all this happens, I encourage you to look for similar themes that may appear in some of the teachers' comments that come home to you. If you find, missed assignments, late to class, missed to participate, those are some things that we can get at that can help you help your child. But please focus on effort, not just grades. If you haven't done so already, encourage your children to try new things, to join clubs, teams, groups, and ensembles, and to give back to their school and the local community, through service above self. Happy phrase, but I think it's important. As years progress, help your children narrow their focus to seek leadership opportunities and to seek ways in which they can demonstrate excellence in art, music, theater, athletics, service, and academics. When the time comes for students to plan their academic schedule for next year, encourage them to take the most challenging set of courses available and appropriate. We sometimes miss that piece. For any of you who have ever gone off to visit colleges and sat in information sessions, admissions officers will frequently say, we expect you to take the most challenging courses available to you in your high school. But I posit that most competitive, most rigorous, but also most appropriate. We don't want to wedge ourselves in to a bunch of honors and AP classes and have all of our grades suffer because we're working so damn hard. Be careful about that. So don't overload with honors and AP classes. Of course, when we talk about honors and AP classes, this begs the perennial question. Is it better to take an AP class and get a B, or to take the regular class and get an A? The answer to that is that it's better to take the AP class and get an A. Is that true? Is that true? Yes. But you know what? But not everyone can do that. Not everyone can do that. So seek the advice of current teachers, particularly, about the courses that your children should take as they move forward. Encourage depth as well as breadth whenever possible. Students, in my opinion, should always take full credit courses in English, mathematics, science, history, and languages each year, with the understanding that one's strength of program and pattern of grades over time are two of the most important factors in the college admissions process these days, especially if that's optional, especially tough. Obviously, much of what I've just said is pretty generic. I suspect if you've had all the children, you've heard these lines before, and you've learned this about the college process. But some of this probably did not come as a surprise to you, what I just said. But having worked with countless families over the years and having gone through the college process with my own children, boy, do I have stories there, particularly about your daughter later. There are a few things that I've seen in students and parents and myself that I believe are worth noting. First, our dreams for our children's college experience may not align with theirs. Tough for us to learn as parents, tough for us to let go sometimes. And when it comes time to discuss challenges, I strongly encourage you to ask open-ended questions and be a sounding board for your child. Don't tell them what you think they would like. Don't tell them what you think they should do, or don't tell them where you think they should go. Tell them what you think you are hearing them say about their preferences. Each child comes to this process in his or her own way. Some embrace it immediately, and the first day we assign college counselors, the next week kids are in my office wanting to talk about building their list. While others, it's okay either way. It is. You know what? They all reach the same finish line at the same time, graduation from high school, moving forward. You know, if finances or distance from home are important factors to you as you begin those discussions, have those discussions early, at the beginning, not at the end. Don't surprise them. Oh, well, yeah, I'd like to apply there, but really I want you to go here because of this. Don't think about that. And I would caution that even though you may think that your child is not thinking about the college process, they are. Beginning the junior year becomes a constant topic of conversation among students at the lunchroom table, all over places. And for you, it may become a conversation at cocktail parties. Where are you applying it? Oh, well, Mom said, we are applying to Harvard. Oh, are you now? So be careful about back to the ownership piece. It's important. A great resource will be your child's college counselor. They will be your child's advocate, not your adversary. He or she ultimately, when that counselor is assigned to you, they may say some things you don't like to hear, such as, that's really a reach, or I don't think that's a realistic choice. When and if that happens, it's simply the counselor offering an honest opinion, oftentimes informed by significant amounts of data about the likelihood of admission. It's not a judgment of your child. Take heed when your counselors offer suggestions about colleges that you may never have heard of, but your counselor has. And that makes such schools worthy of your serious consideration. Creating a balanced list of colleges is crucial. By balanced, I mean a range of selectivity, because ultimately we want our children to have choices. And the more choices they have when this process ends, the better they're going to feel about themselves. If we apply to 10 reaches and one safety, the term that they like to use, we're setting ourselves up for great disappointment. But if we have a few reaches, a few middle range, we call them targets, and a few likelies, we're likely to have choices and they can feel better about themselves when that happens. To me, in this process, which I believe is a service process, I mean, it goes both ways. I believe that we owe service to you. You're paying significant dollars to come to a strong, independent day school. And for that, you need to have service. You need to be confident. You have professionals who are going to do this, but the communication goes both ways. The more time you take to get to know your child's counselor and to provide substantive insights about their growth, challenges, and accomplishments, the better it will be. The college counselor is charged with writing the school's official letter of recommendation for your child. The more information they have, the better that letter can be. Many schools ask parents to complete a questionnaire about their children. I suspect that my prep has done that. Yet it always amazed me to see how many parents choose not to do that, even after being reminded several times. Don't be that parent. If time and resources allow, make visits to colleges and university campuses. But don't start out by visiting the most prestigious and most selective as the first ones you see. Visit a range of schools with differing characteristics. If you're planning to make a trip to a particular area of the country, ask your college counselor for some schools to see along the way or near your final destination. When visiting campuses, have your child lead the way into the admissions office to check in. And when on tour or during information sessions, encourage your child to be the one to ask the questions. We know how we embarrass our children when we ask silly questions. It could be a perfectly fine question, but when we ask it, we're embarrassing your child. Let them ask those questions. But prepare them for them. What questions we might want to hear? Prep that a little bit before you even go in. Ultimately, when the college search and application process begins in earnest, don't make it a constant topic of conversation. Agree on a day and time, perhaps even every couple of weeks initially, and then perhaps weekly down the stretch, just to touch base and check in so that you're comfortable with their progress. And if you have concerns, reach out to your college counselor. We can often say things to your child that don't cause an emotional outburst to your well-intentioned questions. Conversely, we can often do the same when we reach out to you on behalf of your child, usually to let you know that they're feeling really stressed. Finally, as you might imagine, given my gray hair, I have lots of stories to tell about my work as a college counselor, but I'd rather stop now and answer your questions and then begin to craft your own stories. about the college search and application process. But before we get to those questions, I'd like to end where I began. Relax, it'll be okay. Just a few thoughts, but floor is completely open. I can go from 9th grade through 10th grade, you name it. I believe that I'm prepared to answer your questions, and I prefer the tough questions. So, fire away. Yes, ma'am.
One question that I've heard with kids going through the process now, with the test optional,
Right.
what some people are saying, and particularly from the larger state schools, is that even though they might say they're test optional, when they see you're coming from a private school, it's not necessarily test optional, it's more for people for financial reasons.
We must remember that test optional does not mean that they're unaware. They are test aware as well. So yes, I agree with you. And if you were coming from a system where it's expected that this is what typically people do, lockstep, they take the PSAT early, they take the PACT early, they do that, that's true. But there may be some cases for some students for whom testing just doesn't work. That's okay. But when that happens, though, the students need to present themselves with that strong academic record, taking challenging courses in the highest grades possible. Just saw an article just last week, it's interesting you mentioned, just last week about Brown last year. Brown was test optional. Only 28% of the students who were admitted to Brown last year were admitted test optional. Gives you an idea. Now the other group, and some of those recruited athletes, some of those are sons and daughters of major donors. So when you think about the test optional group, it's a smaller group. So if you can take tests and do them well, if you can prepare for tests, do it. I think it's good. I personally like the ACT. I've lived in Iowa where the ACT was founded because it has traditionally been more of an achievement-based test. So students who typically do well in the classroom day in and day out tend to do better on the ACT. It's evenly balanced. English and reading, math and science, pretty balanced, which is good. But no, the SAT has now gone back to being fully balanced. For a number of years they had writing score and verbal score and the math score. Now it's just verbal and math again. And we're back to the 1600 scale instead of the 2400 scale. Oh, by the way, I want all of you to know, I suspect most of you took your SATs before 1992.
Yes.
So the good news is you can add 80 points to your verbal score right now. The SAT was renormed in 1992. The great dumbing down of America. We're trying to make it an average. So this is the average now, but in 1992 it was renormed. So add 80 points to your verbal score and walk out of here saying, I have 50.
So as long as you're talking about the SATs, somebody was explaining to me now that the SATs are like cumulative. You should take it as many times as you want because they're accepting your highest score from each take of the test.
That is called score choice. That's right, score choice. So you could submit the verbal score from one test and the math score from another. That said, we want to be careful. Usually, you take it about 3 times. The middle is probably about your tested ability. Some schools now ask for you to report every score of every test you've ever taken. Now, what does that say? The student's taken it 8 times. Okay, wrapped a little tight, right? Or the kid who has 780 on math and wants to take it one more time to get an 800. No. So at some point, it is an indication. The SAT was designed in conjunction with high school grades to be a predictor of first-year college success. That's how it was initially designed. But yes, taking it multiple times, that's fine. Prepping for it, fine. When the test prep company first came out, the Princeton Review was the first test prep company that came out. The college board said, "Oh, prepping doesn't work." Well, prepping doesn't work. It does. You spend some time and look at your strengths and weaknesses and work through them. And I'd like to do that sooner rather than later. I'd like to do that with either the PACT, PAC, or the SAT and get scores back. And these are foundational scores that you can take a look at different components that might need a little work, because so the stronger the foundation, the stronger the rest of the building can be moving forward. So you can work at that. And I would hope we would engage with the school to do that as well. My last school, the TAB school, we were struggling. I got all the math teachers and English teachers to take a look at the exam books just for one day. To take a look at, because they give you the whole book, you keep the book on the PSAT, and to take a look at what kids were doing. And one of the math teachers said, "Oh my goodness, everybody missed this question. They all know this." Oh, we didn't introduce that topic until later. We can easily introduce that topic now. So working in conjunction with your department chairs and the like, testing, preparing for testing can be helpful. Good. Follow up or?
No.
Okay. Other question. We can talk about financial aid, we can talk about visiting colleges, we can talk about athletic recruitment, we can talk about special interest cases, we can talk about, you name it. I'm here for you. Yes, sir.
Over your tenure, two biggest mistakes that parents at this age range make are?
Believing that they know what a good college is, based upon their past experiences, or based upon what someone else has told you what a good college is. How do we learn about good college? How do we learn about the best colleges? What's the one thing we know most often that tells us the best colleges? Remember it? Each year, each fall? U.S. News and World Report, annual rankings of colleges. First time it came out was 1983. Didn't come out for 2 more years. In 1985, the rankings issue was the largest single-selling net issue of U.S. News ever. And over the period of about 4 or 5 years, they tweaked the formula about what made one school stronger or better. So suddenly, Williams is number 1, the liberal arts college is 1 year, and then Gibbs Amherst in the 3rd year, Swarthmore. Same kind of things. And then colleges started to do things like trying to game the system, trying to figure out what happens, and trying to game the system. And it's just led to this sort of cottage industry of rankings. We have a Forbes ranking, we have in Europe, we have the league tables. In Canada, we have McLean's ranking, McLean's. So all these rankings that go on. I actually tend to like the Forbes ranking a little bit because it brings everyone together, colleges and universities, whereas the U.S. News has national universities and national liberal arts colleges. I would like the fact to bring it together. Now, when I was in Korea, what do the Asian families know? The only thing they know is Ivy. And they're surprised to learn that some of the Ivy League schools are not in the top 20. Surprised to learn that. They were also surprised to learn in the Forbes magazine article that Williams was ranked number 1 among all a couple years ago. Williams College, never heard of it. Can't be any good. That's the other thing. Can't be any good if I haven't heard of it. Can't be any good if I haven't heard of it, but it is. And that's what we college counselors try to do. We try to find those places. We try to get to know your children really, really well, so that when we're offering suggestions about schools to think about, we see patterns develop. So if a student aspires to Williams but doesn't have a Williams profile, you might then take a look at Hamilton. If you don't have the Hamilton profile, maybe you want to take a look at Franklin Marshall. And we might look at Ohio Wesleyan. We might look at Lake Forest College. And I can come across the country. I've just been doing it so long, so much gray hair. But I do see patterns develop. And your counselors can do that as we move forward.
On rankings, Terry, I'll mention quickly, in a moment, I will head back over to my office and bring back a stack that I'll leave here on the table, and you're welcome to take one if you like. But I, like Terry, remember when this all began, and a couple of years ago in my hometown, or community where I live, where I'm not on an interim in Sarasota, Florida, I wrote an op-ed piece for the Sarasota Herald Tribune that in essence invites the readers to completely ignore those college rankings, specifically the ones that U.S. News sort of foists on all of us. So right behind where Mr. LaValle is standing, there's a table, and I'll go ahead and put a stack of copies of that op-ed piece from the Herald Tribune. And if you'd like to take a copy on your way out later on, you're welcome to do so.
Even in the popular press, you might have seen in recent months that major law schools have decided not to provide information about the rankings. Yale's pulled out, and a few colleges have pulled out. Reed College pulled out many years ago from the undergraduate rankings. And then
Colorado College, just very
Colorado
recently.
College has pulled out, as well as the Rhode Island School of Design. I mean, here's a very, very technical school, specifically focusing on the arts. Why should they be ranked as next door to a liberal arts college? It just doesn't make sense. A very self-selected applicant group. Rankings are crazy. I used to sit on the U.S. News Advisory Board. We go to DC every year. We talk about the rankings, and I said, you know what? What do the rankings have to be front and center? Why can't it be something that's used as an opportunity? What about college councils helping you rank some schools? Because it used to be just done on a reputational survey. What one president of a certain type of school knew about other schools. How could they know? 400 different schools. They can't. So they try to push themselves. I'm going to rank myself next to Swarthmore. I'm going to rank myself next to Grinnell. All those kinds of things. So it's a bit of a game, and it's a bit of a money maker because they sold lots of magazines. Let's go on. Yes, sir.
From a financial perspective, I didn't realize until recently that a lot of other states are offering like reciprocal state tuition rates. Are there any limitations to that or restrictions with regards to ones they're doing?
Well, it just depends. Something's called, it used to be called the academic common market. And in the southeast, there were some. So if you had an instrument major that your state flagship school did not have, they would give you in-state tuition because you go out of state and take that diploma. And even more than that is they're trying to, maximize revenue. It's all down to net tuition revenue. So rather than fill my beds with someone paying a little lower price, than not to fill the beds. So that is happening. I don't know that there's a lot of detail about who are specifically doing that, but it's a good question to ask when you visit a college. Coming from out of state, is there anything that can be done? And sometimes they are offering some merit scholarships to out-of-state students as a way of discounting the price. You see merit scholarships all the time. Well, it's wonderful, my child won a merit scholarship, isn't that great? But it's really just a discount. Don't we all expect a rebate when we go buy a new car? The same thing is happening in the colleges. They're doing it as the costs go up. The discount rate, the amount of money that colleges give to students and families, either on a need-based way or a merit-based way, is now over 50% across the nation. Why don't we just all dial it back? Instead of charging $75,000, let's dial it back here a little bit. Some schools are trying that, some successfully and some not so. Other questions? Fire away.
Is there a right number of schools that you suggest a kid apply to?
Yeah, I used to say, 8 or 10 would be fine, but now the world has changed so much. I think applying to 15 or 20 is okay if it's done with thoughtfulness. This whole application glut that we've seen last year, well, this year, for example, Northeastern, no, sorry, I'm going back away. USC this year had an early action plan, which is non-binding for the first time ever. They received 40,000 applications for those early actions. They bidded 6%. They received another 40,000 applications for regular decision. Those decisions are just about to come out. But colleges aren't admitting different people. They're still admitting the same people. But with the common application and with electronic submissions of applications, the students just hit a button. Submit, submit, submit. It's crazy. And some kids will specifically apply to the colleges on the common application that do not require a supplemental essay. On the main common application is one main essay. Lots of schools have supplemental essays. Why are you choosing our school? What do you want to major in? How did you hear about us? Those kinds of things. Other schools, they want the applications. Because the more applications they have, the more they can deny. And the more they deny, the better acceptance rate looks. And the better acceptance rate looks, the U.S. News and Report grade goes up. Did any of you ever apply to college under early decision? One and done? I did. I knew by October 1st of my senior year that I was going to college. Not a good thing to happen for a guy who didn't really want to do his homework. Because when I got to college, I majored in beer, football, and fraternity. I got straight A's and O's, but the others, not so much. But it used to be that a college might receive, or maybe enroll a third of its class under early decision plans, binding plans. Now some schools are enrolling 60 and 65% by enrolling. So applying early is a factor. You'll hear about this. If you want to get in a good school, you got to apply early.
How early would you apply?
Usually the deadline's right now, October 15th and November 1st.